Welcome to another Classic Car Club drive-through. Hey, no peanut gallery laughing. I know. I'm talking to my people. Get it? Okay. You've made it like the only one that's gonna be 2 takes.
Pretty good.
Welcome to another Classic Car Club drive-through. Today we're doing the 2020 Porsche Cake. Today we're doing the 2020 Porsche Taycan. I'm really excited about this car. Full disclosure, I'm fully drinking the Kool-Aid on EVs. I daily drive a Volkswagen e-Golf now that I moved out of the city, that I'm kind of hot rodding a bit. Maybe we'll do drive-through on that one of these days. But you know, 15 miles out of the city, sitting in traffic, I just couldn't see myself sitting there idling, burning fuel. As much as I love classic cars and the smell of fuel and get my hands dirty and all that stuff, it just seemed like an EV made sense for my drive, and I'm really enjoying it. You know, instant torque, little hot hatchback with a little bit of suspension work. It's a really fun car to drive. In that pursuit, I kind of decided there isn't really any production enthusiast drivers cars in EVs at the moment. Teslas are extremely high performance. You know, the Jaguar I-Pace, all these other cars with big torquey electric motors and big batteries happen to be performance cars, but it's not that's what they set out for. So my little e-Golf hot rod project was sort of like, you know, the only thing that's sort of like the out-of-road car of EVs, where it's just an enthusiast tuner thing that's fun to drive. When Porsche announced that they were going to make an EV, that really piqued my interest. With 6 decades of building sports cars and you know, a real motorsport pedigree, I thought that'd be pretty interesting. High level specs, you know, it's just ridiculous. All these cars are so fast. So this is the Turbo. We didn't go for the Turbo S. The Turbo is still 670 horsepower, 626 foot-pounds of torque. It does have a 2-speed gearbox, which most EVs opt for a direct drive, single speed, but that gives Porsche that extra bit of performance and acceleration in the higher modes. And also with that and the tuning and the setup and the handling of the battery, they're able to deliver these high performance launches and driving consistently. You know, you may get in another EV that has loads of torque and a giant battery and it can take off and do 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. But if you do that over and over again, the electronics will, you know, get worn down. Porsche's come at it fully from a performance perspective and made sure that, you know, they can repeat that performance over and over and over again. It's a bit heavy. I think it's over 5,000 pounds, which it's hard to talk about a sports car weighing that much, but the good news is all that weight is low. So, you know, you get the benefit of a low center of gravity and stability and better handling. In general, you know, Porsche's first stab at it, they've made something where the specs are completely off the charts. So really excited to drive this car. There's a lot to learn inside, so I'm going to save my breath for the inside because there's a lot to figure out. It's a whole different way to drive. We'll hop in and check out what it's like inside. Inside the Porsche Taycan, there's quite a lot to talk about, so bear with me. I hear a lot of people say it's a whole new thing. Well, this is actually a whole new thing. First, everyone wants to know about the range and how you drive it and charge it and all that stuff. And we need a little bit of a lesson in how EVs work, because everyone wants to look at, you know, the miles they have added. And if I go on this screen here, this number is important. Consumption, which it's actually a misnomer. You know, we talk about fuel consumption, but then we talk about miles per gallon, which is not consumption, that's achievement. Americans, forever the optimists, we talk about something bad and then give you the positive number. To put it in the same language, I've set this to miles per kilowatt hour. So whoever's been driving this recently has been doing about 2.8 miles per kilowatt hour. This thing is 93 kilowatt battery, of which it uses 83. So if you want to have a rough rule of thumb, sure, Porsche was aiming for 300 miles. The EPA gave them a range of 192 miles. But if you're doing around 3 miles per kilowatt and you have 83 kilowatts, you're going to do 240 miles or more. If you're heavy on the accelerator, or throttle, I can't call it throttle either. It's not a gas pedal for sure. If you're heavy on the accelerator, you're going to drink those electrons quicker and you're going to bring that number down. If you're conservative, you know, put it in range mode, you could bring it up, you know, maybe up to 3.5 or 4. and then start to get in some real longer range. While it's a giant battery, 93 kilowatts, that has the energy equivalent of less than 3 gallons of gasoline. When you have a full battery in here, it's like, almost being empty in your gas car. And with that, you can still achieve 240 miles. It tells you how efficient an electric vehicle is, but when it's that efficient, when it's using so much of that energy, converting it into useful energy to move the car, anything else you do to it is going to affect that energy consumption massively. With a gasoline car, you're throwing away tons of energy already. So if you do something like drive a little harder or turn the AC on max or whatever, it doesn't make a big difference because you're already throwing away so much energy anyways. With an EV, you're using so much of the energy to move the car and throwing away so little of it. Anything you add is going to add proportionally, and it's going to have a bigger effect. Hot day, AC on, that's going to affect your range. Driving hard, that will affect your range. You do have your kind of fuel gauge here, will give you your mile guesstimate based on how much energy you have left in the battery and what your consumption has been. You can change that. If you drive hard, you're going to drive that range down. If you drive easy and you have been driving hard, you're going to extend that range out. If you're going a distance and you need to plan charging along the way, you got to leave at least 20 miles surplus in your planning so that if you miss a turn or whatever, you're not going to be freaking out on your range. I have found when I've got close to it, it goes into some hyper range mode. The one time I had planned that I was going to get down around 20 miles, once I got into the reserve range, it suddenly kicked up to 55 miles. Like it found another 30 miles. I think on the absolute range mode, it drops the consumption of everything down more, and it might let you have access to some of the reserve battery that doesn't usually use. That extra charging, extra draining at the margins is what kills battery life. Leaving some margin there, it extends the battery life longer. This also has all kinds of active cooling and battery management, all this sophisticated stuff to make sure that the battery lasts forever. And being that it's a Porsche, it can deliver performance over and over and over again without degrading. There's my long lesson on EV charging. We've also equipped you with a couple of the popular key fobs for charging stations. So if you do end up at one of these, charging is on us. There's an app you should download called PlugShare, which you can use to plot charging stations on your route, and it will tell you which company makes each one. There are some that we don't have, and you just pay with a card when you get there. The best ones for this are the EV America, which is Volkswagen's own network. Part of their Dieselgate penalty money, they had to go build a charging network around the US. Those will deliver, they have 150 kilowatt chargers and 300 kilowatt chargers, where most DC fast chargers will do 50. So again, this car is 90 kilowatts. If you're on a 300 kilowatt charger, 350, you're charging from say 20 to 85% in 20 minutes. So if you have a long highway stint and you see there's EV America or Electrify America chargers on your route, plan that as your stop, and by the time you use the restroom and grab some beef jerky, you're on your way, and your car's charged. Play around with that. You gotta get into the weeds and nerd out on that stuff a little bit to understand how it all works, but it's part of the EV experience. You just have to plan your driving around your energy consumption. All that said, now let's get into actually driving the thing. It's familiar Porsche controls. Start button on the left. I will say it is a bit ambiguous when the car is on or off, and I have a few times walked away with it on not knowing it because it doesn't make any noise until you put it into drive, and even then it's making an artificial noise for you. But start button on the left, just shut it off. You hold it down for 2 seconds and you'll see all the screens go off. So when you're leaving the car, make sure you do that. I haven't exactly figured out. Sometimes the car seems to start on its own when I walk up to it, because it does have keyless entry, but sometimes I still have to push the start button. I can't figure out the logic. I think it has to do something to do with if you automatically or manually locked it when you walked away, but I haven't quite cracked the code on that one. So you get in, if it isn't on already, you hit the start button, click down on this lever to go into drive. Once you're in drive, it unlocks the steering wheel, and it will start making this noise to let other people know your car is on. It's a federally mandated kind of pedestrian safety noise, so that you don't creep up on people. That said, it's a complete myth that EVs are silent. They do make sound, they just don't make a lot of sound at low speed. But when you accelerate, you get this kind of Jetson-y engine whine That's pretty cool. And you get all the gear sounds and you hear the tires and all that stuff. Porsche has done their own kind of sport mode sound generator, which we've set up to be controlled by this diamond shaped button here. So if you push this when it's in gear, you hear everything drops down a bit. And I think what's pretty cool about this is they haven't made a fake combustion engine sound. They've gone and made a sort of enhancement of the sound that's already there. And having seen EV race cars in action, we go to Formula E, they do the E-Trophy production car races ahead of that. It sounds like the EV race cars. It's really sort of truly like a motorsport EV sound. So I kind of like it, even if it is fake. When you hear it from the outside, it's like the future is driving by, so pretty cool stuff. The other really important bit is this dial here. This is the drive mode button. So it's always going to start out normal. If you turn it to the left, you'll go to range mode, where it will optimize everything for range. This is going to change the available power, suspension height. It does suspension tuning, stiffness, and then you've got Sport, Sport Plus, and then an individual mode that you can program. We'll give it a little Sport Plus for this. You can individually control height and suspension stiffness. So I believe if I'm in Sport Plus and I push that, it's then going to put the suspension on normal, so a softer setting, which again, I kind of always go for the soft setting. So we'll run with that and see. So with all that EV stuff out of the way, I get to drive this thing, and I'm really excited to see what an EV designed with performance in mind will do, because I'm a big fan of Tesla. You know, they've done a great job. They've really moved the whole EV thing forward, and they are excellent performance cars, but it's kind of a happy accident of the fact that they are an EV. You know, they're really efficient, kind of clean slate transportation appliances that happen to be high performance because they have giant batteries, electric motors that deliver instant torque, a low center of gravity that has pays dividends and good handling. So while Teslas are great performance cars, it wasn't what they set out to do, and they don't really have a history in building cars like that. Porsche designed everything about this with performance in mind, really to set a standard for like EV performance cars. You know, with that, they've just, all the driver dynamics are what you'd expect from a sports car, particularly a Porsche. Here we go, we got Sport Plus. Put my suspension on soft. We got that somewhat artificial sound. In good EV form, it's relentless. You know, like I was pretty easy on the throttle there, and it just took off. And it doesn't let up. You know, we have really powerful combustion engine cars. You know, we got a McLaren 720 and things that just make seemingly immeasurable power. Even those cars, even as much power as they make, they still build up and fall off, and you change gears and do it again and again. With an EV, you just have this flat torque curve, and when you put your foot down, it just keeps going until you let up. There's no release. It is a different thing. So someone may have just said I went 100 miles an hour, and I don't know if I did, but I wouldn't be shocked because it all comes on so quick in this car. It's just super instant and relentless and dynamic, and before you have a chance to even look at the speedometer, you're just taking off. That's that kind of fake engine sound you're hearing, little throttle blips and stuff. If I turn that off, you still get noise. It's quieter, but you still get that kind of electric whine. Hear a little tire squeal. This does, you know, we spec this car to run all season, so it's got all season performance tires. You will hear the tires working a little bit in these corners because it is a heavy car. It's over 5,000 pounds. I can't wait until they have a battery breakthrough where they can take some of that weight out of the batteries. You know, this car at 4,000 pounds would be amazing. It is amazing as it is now, but it would be a kind of unprecedented thing. As it is, even, you know, it's not as big as a Panamera. It's a pretty compact car, but it does a good job of hiding that weight. You know, really feeling like a sports car. And with my kind of preferred soft mode suspension, it's really sucking up everything in this road. This is one of the lesser maintained sort of exit roads out of Bear Mountain, and it's pretty rough. And this thing is just like gliding over all of it while hammering through the corners and keeping it flat. It's really impressive. The experience that you get when someone's designed all the driver dynamics around kind of a performance car enthusiast experience is it's fantastic. It hasn't been set up for single pedal driving. That's where a lot of EVs have very heavy regenerative braking, so that you can let off the throttle and it will brake hard enough that the regenerative braking from the recharging the batteries will slow the car down enough and put some brake lights on. They deliberately chose not to do that. They do have a button you can push here to toggle a little bit of regenerative braking on, and that's meant really to simulate what you get out of engine braking in a normal combustion engine sports car. So again, they haven't gone to the point where it's like you're just going to only touch the brake pedal when you want to stop, but they've made it feel like you'd expect a sports car to feel. That's pretty cool. I definitely appreciate that. When you do hit the brake pedal, your first bit of actuation is not actually using the physical brakes. That's then controlling the regenerative braking. Spent a lot of time working out this perfect transition from regenerative braking to the physical brake, stopping the car again, so that they wouldn't have that be anything that interferes with the sports car driving experience. In the end, they set out really just to make it drive like a Porsche that happens to be an EV, and they've done it. And the benefit of that, in spite of its heft and weight from the batteries, is that you've got a Porsche with instant torque. It's kind of mind-blowing platform performance. Honestly, like the kind of acceleration that makes you feel sick. It's so fast when you put your foot down. But when you're out on roads like this and really looking to drive the car, it means that you just have instant response out of the car whenever you ask for it. I'm really impressed. Obviously I'm a bit biased drinking the Kool-Aid on EVs, but I think it's a great setup. I'm looking forward to see what Porsche can do as this evolves, and hopefully we get some battery breakthroughs that give you more energy, less weight, all those great things, more range. If this is the future, I'm pretty interested.